Alright, so here's my story. I'm 16 and I have family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. My uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put out in the woods for hunting and camping. My cousin suggests that we go out there to camp. Now, I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the fuck out of me. We collect food, kill a pig and some chickens, and bring necessities to camp out for a few days. We get to camp and it's obvious that something is weird. The air has this weird electric smell, like right before a storm, like ozone. We think nothing of it, unpack, and go down to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. The guy has a shotgun in the crook of his arm. He says hello, and he asks us what we're doing this far back in the woods. I tell him about my uncle, who he knows, and I say we're camping out. He tells us that we need to be real careful out here and stick together because there was some big animal in the woods. His son, who is my age, asks if he can hang out with us, and he says okay. So we end up playing football. Digging around with me, there's the white kid Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. In total, there were 5 girls and 6 boys, and we were all around 15 to 17. We ended up just dicking the whole day away. So we head back to camp and we start pulling out stuff for a campfire. Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's and that he wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come camping with us. My cousin Rooster says that he's going with him since it's going to get dark soon, and one of the girls also wants to tag along. So it's about 7 o'clock, and it's starting to get pretty dark. They grab flashlights and take the trail towards Tan's property while the rest of us just chill. We make s'mores, drink, and, kiss on the girls. About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's the smell of ozone again. You could smell it over the fire that we had started. It was this really nasty, coppery smell, like right after you had a nosebleed and it stopped. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was that nasty, metallic, back of your throat smell. We immediately think that it's some kind of electrical malfunction, or someone left the hot plate on or some shit. We search the trailers, and nothing is on, but we can all still smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking it down the path towards us. Rooster, Tan, and the girl all come running into the clearing out of breath. They don't even break stride. They all run right into the trailer, right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there and into the trailers. They end up calming down. Even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower. So my other cousins say fuck it, and they're about to go outside and get the generator out of the shed. Tanner goes, fuck no, lock the front door, ain't nobody else going outside. He's been crying too, and his eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house, and his father said sure, he could come out camping, but that they needed to be careful on the way back, and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of their pigs had come up just ripped apart and half-eaten. They assumed it was just some big cat or some coyotes, even though they usually don't fuck with live animals. He'd gone upstairs to pack his stuff, and he told his dad that they would be okay without the rifle because coyotes avoid people. Then they started to walk back towards where we were camping. So Rooster finally stops crying and shaking. The girl already had, but she was just staring out the window with a dumb look on her face. He says that they had gotten halfway into the woods toward the camp when they started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure at first what the fuck it was. The girl says she heard something in the bushes right off the trail, and they all beamed their flashlights over, and there was someone standing in the back of the woods in a little hollow. Rooster says that they shouted at him, and they told him that he was scaring the fuck out of them, and, what a dick he was. He says that's when he realized that the guy was facing away from them. So they keep walking, and they start smelling the nasty coppery ozone smell. They say that they look off in the forest on the opposite side, and it's a dude standing in the forest, backwards slightly closer to the path. So now they start power walking, and Tan keeps going, I should have taken the fucking rifle. As they're telling the story, the smell is super strong, even inside the cabin. They say that they started walking faster, and that a kind of low gibbering had started coming from both sides of the wood. As they started booking it back towards the trailer, the girl said that she had shined her flashlight out into the woods to the side of them and had seen someone just jerking themselves through the woods. The gibbering just got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from a campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them onto the track, and that they had just flat out ran as hard as they could back to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods, and we're assuming at this point it's some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin, Junior, starts going on about how he went to school with a native kid that was telling him about the Goatman or some shit. We promptly tell him to shut the fuck up because we don't need any spooky shit right now. But he just keeps going on and on about how it's the fucking Goatman and how we're in his woods and blah blah blah. Now at the time I had never heard of this Goatman or any of that, but then a couple years ago, the year before I graduated from college, I had met him for a roommate, and I ended up asking him about it. To sum it up, it's basically, a fucking guy with the head of a goat, and he can shapeshift. He gets among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be kind of like the Wendigo, and it's bad mojo to even talk about it, and it's even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know any of this back when I was 16. So, my cousin keeps going, the Goatman's going to get in and fucking get us. The girls are all terrified, and my cousins and I are all just trying to fucking figure out if it's some hillbillies or if it's some animal. All of a sudden, the smell just goes away. Like, to this day, I haven't even experienced anything like it. Like, usually, smells fade away, or they lessen. It was just literally there 1 second, and then not the next. So it's after an hour, making it around 9 or 10. We've stopped shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some assholes trying to fuck with us, so we don't go back home because we think if we do, they'll chase us through the woods or some crazy shit like that. Nothing else weird happens that night. We end up staying another night, and for the main part of the night, nothing happens. But at about 1 in the morning, we're outside and we're getting drunk and telling ghost stories. As someone is finishing some too spooky story, I don't remember what about, the smell comes back. And it's so fucking strong that one of the girls literally starts vomiting. I stand up and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say that we should get inside and that this isn't right and that we should have just fucking left. We all go back inside and we're standing around. My cousin just keeps going on about how it's the Goatman. My cousin Rooster tries to shut him the fuck up, and all the while, I'm just feeling that something is wrong. But I can't figure out what the fuck it is. We end up just sitting in there for a while. The smell is just as strong, and we're all terrified and huddled in this camper. We end up cooking brats for everyone, because nobody wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats, and we have a total of 3 packs. I grill them up on the stove for everyone, and give everybody a hot dog, and then I get mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up, and he goes over to the pot to get another one. Well, he starts grumbling about how I get 2 brats, and everybody else only got 1. And I look at him like he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were 12 brats, and if he wants more, then he should open up a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl that had been out with Rooster and Tan just starts screaming, "Oh Jesus, oh Lord, get it out!" She's crying and shivering, and then it dawns on the cousin standing up, what the fuck is wrong? Me and him both glance around the room, and I feel my heart just fucking sink. I run the fuck out of the cabin and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer as everybody books it out of the cabin. One of my cousin's friends asks us what the fuck is wrong, and then I start counting us. And there's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified there had been 12 people in the cabin. But being that everybody didn't really know each other, nobody really noticed the whole fucking time that there was an extra person. And then I realized earlier that I had kind of noticed that something was off. You know, when you're just sticking around and having a good time, you don't sweat the small shit, and you don't always keep track of certain stuff. I'm dead certain that someone else had been in the trailer with us, and that they had been there for at least a fucking day, eating with us. What makes it worse is that I could figure out which one it was, because I don't think anyone ever actually interacted with it. The girl kept praying to Jesus, and we're all just sitting outside. Eventually we get some big ass sticks and go back into the cabin, but nobody's in there. We count again, and there's 11 people. We go back into the trailer and we lock the door. We explain what the fuck happened, and the girl says that she realized it too, and that when he was about to say something, the person sitting next to her had grabbed her leg hard and leaned over towards her and said something that she couldn't understand. So we're pretty much scared as fuck as we all huddle together, and I end up falling asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up, and half the people are asleep and the other half are packing up our shit. We all want to walk home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think that we're just fucking around, and they still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name was Kira, the one that the Goatman had touched. Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks that it was something bad, and she says that she just wants to go home, and that she doesn't want to be out in the woods for another night. So we decide to split up. The 4 that want to go can go, but I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin, and it's my uncle's, and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point because I feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously, and I definitely don't want to be out in the woods for another night. I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, now 4 girls and 4 guys, to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to go get a rifle, and he says he's going to be back. So there are just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m. he still hasn't made it back yet, and we're getting extremely fucking antsy. The only reason I stopped begging him to go back was because he went to go get a gun. It's about 5:30 p.m. or so, when the one cousin that did say that the girl Kira is outside. We all look outside, and sure enough, she's standing there by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. And I'm thinking to myself, if she was so fucking scared, then why the hell would she come back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind that the whole time the coppery smell had been gone. But now I realize that I can smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them, and everybody. And these were the people who wanted to stay out in the fucking woods after we had the goddamn Goatman in our midst. Is laughing at me and asking if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like I'm not fucking bullshitting you right now. I asked them why the fuck would I play like that. So one of the girls goes outside to get Kira. She gets about halfway to her and stops cold. Kira starts heaving. I don't know how the fuck to describe it. Sort of like if someone with their back turned was laughing without actually making any noise. It was that fact that made me realize that there was not a fucking sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This was like late in September, so it was still fairly hot at the time, but it was super chilly some days too. You could usually hear some big-ass geese honking or some kind of birds or squirrels chit-chatting. So I step out of the door and I tell her to come back in the fucking trailer right goddamn now. She backs up into the trailer and we lock the fucking door. We pull down all the shades except one. We put a guy in a chair to watch her. She stands there for another 20 minutes or so. The guy turns to say that she's still there, and there's a huge fucking bang on the door. We all jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room. The banging is super fucking loud, and now one of my cousins is holding on one of the girls. The other two are just kind of giggling with nervous laughter, and me and two of the other guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan, and he's screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop fucking playing!" So we go over the door and we open it. He stumbles in with the rifle, and there's nobody else outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest, but he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said that it was not Kira standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned toward him with a slack-jawed look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said that it wasn't until he was almost halfway to the trailer that he realized that she was getting closer to him. She had started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer to him. He said that he just ran the rest of the way back to the cabin thinking that it would open. And when the door was locked, he turned and it was about half the distance to the door. He looks around the room, and then he gets super pale. He pulls me to the side and he whispers in my ear, "You know that there are only 7 of us in here, right?" I get that feeling when your stomach drops to your nuts. It had been back inside the trailer while we were sorting out who was going where, and then when we all went outside to talk earlier in the day. It had just slipped right back in. We looked out the window, and there's nobody out there. So we recount everyone, and then basically I go over and ask everyone how many people were here earlier. And everybody says 8. I say, well, how many are there now? They all do the count, and then they realize that there are only 7 people in the cabin. So Tan brought back a couple of boxes of ammo and his rifle. He had told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think his dad would believe him if he said that it was the Goatman. He says that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours, and that in the morning we can all but go back to his place, and his cousin will drive us home. Now I'm really fucking terrified, but I at least feel better because we can be American and shoot the fuck out of whatever it is if it comes back. But then my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny and prank them, and that she's getting really scared, and that I'm not funny. He keeps telling her that I'm not that kind of person, and she says, well, how do we know that it wasn't just Tanner in a wig, or if it really is the Goatman, then how do we know that this is the real Tanner, and that the Goatman didn't just kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun? So we get into this huge fucking argument about this, and me and Tan are like, we could seriously be in danger because, at the very least, someone has been sneaking themselves into our fucking trailer without us knowing and mingling with us. And at worst, it's something bad in the forest that's fucking with us. One of the girls is crying and saying that she just wants to go home right now. And we're trying to tell her that we shouldn't because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down, and it's getting a little cloudy out. We all eat something and we turn on the radio for a while, but we can't really get a station out there with anything decent. So we turn it off, and at about that time, Tan's cousin shows up. He was like 19, I think. At this point, the sun is just barely over the horizon, and he has one of those heavy-duty lantern flashlights, and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer, and we whisper to Tan, asking him if he's sure that's his cousin, and he says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp, and then he walks in. He kind of glances at all of us, and he looks a little confused. He says, "Where's your other little buddy at? I figured that she would meet me up at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something?" He also asked whether or not we had been cooking blood, because it smelled like blood in hot pans all the way up the trail. We asked him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He'd come down the same trail that Tan had been using, and he had come upon one of you guys' buddies standing in the middle of the trail, just looking at him slack-jawed. He asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was just look at him. Then she smiled at him, and he kept walking. She couldn't seem to keep up with him, and she kept lagging a little bit behind him. He said that he asked her if she was hurt or something, and if she needed any help. But she just kept staring at him. Eventually, he had been walking and turned around a bend in the trail. But when he turned around and went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He assumed that she had taken some shortcut through the woods to our trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's been going on. I half expected him to say that we were full of shit, but he just listened, and then he sat down on one of the couches in the living room. Tanner's cousin gets back to the girl. He says that when she had kept lagging behind him, it had kind of weirded him the fuck out, so he tried to keep her in front of him. But no matter how slow he walked, she always just lagged a little bit behind. He kept smelling this nasty smell, and it got stronger as he got to the camp. Eventually, it got really strong, and she had said something really low that he didn't catch, and when he had turned around, she had been right the fuck next to him, and he stepped away from her. It was about this point he asked her if she was okay, and if she wasn't, he offered to carry her back the rest of the way, but she just kept staring. He said that he reached out for her, as in to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged the distance because she was off to the side of where he put his hand. Like, she had moved while he was looking dead at her. So at this point, we know that this shit is real. Unless Tan is playing a joke, which we can tell that he's not, because he's almost pissing his pants. So they load up their rifles, we eat some more, and we kind of just sit around until about 11. To this fucking day, every time I think about this, I really pray to God that it's just some huge prank that my cousins played on me, and just never revealed so that I would shit for the rest of my life. At around 11 o'clock, the stink of copper turns into this actual nasty, gross blood smell. Like cooking blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin Reese get the fuck up instantly and grab the rifles. There's like a half knocking, half clawing at the door. And I shit you not, there's this voice. And it sounds like when you see those YouTube cats and dogs whose owners teach him how to talk. It says in this halting, weirdly toned voice,
"Let me the fuck in. Stop fucking playing."
It made my fucking skin crawl. One of the girls just starts crying and calling on Jesus. It was so fucking obviously not a person talking. It didn't have the right cadence. And that's some shit that I never realized until that moment. But all people have a certain cadence when they talk, no matter what language it is. All people have a certain kind of rhythm to talking. This shit didn't have any kind of cadence or rhythm. One of those YouTube cats, that's what the fuck it sounded like outside the door. So now I'm in full-on terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who the fuck is it? Stop fucking around, man." And it just keeps saying in, or let me the fuck in for almost 15 minutes. I'm sorry for being on a tangent, but if you can't imagine how this shit sounded, then you can't imagine how fucked up the whole situation was. And then the smell goes away for the while. And for the next hour or so, you can hear someone basically creeping around the woods and shit. Every couple of minutes, it'll come back to the door and say something. Finally, the smell fades away, and it's around 2 in the morning. Reese says, "Man, fuck this," and he opens the door and he walks outside with his rifle. He fires a shot in the air, and it says something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times, and then from the woods right up against the river, across from the trailer, it sounds like someone is slowly gibbering and hooting. And then it starts screaming, and it sounds almost like a woman and a cat in a bag all screaming together. Like, seriously, I have never heard any shit like that. And you can hear the brush over the way just start to shake. Reese fires over the tree line, and then starts backing into the house. We lock the door, and we can hear the shit just keening and screaming. Reese says that something had come out of the bushes, super low to the ground, and crawling towards the cabin, and he had shot at it. Pretty much that was how the rest of the night went. It was literally screaming constantly for the next 2 hours, and we could hear shit moving out into the tree line. But it never came back up to the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting in a chair watching the door with his rifle. Nobody else heard or saw this, and he told this to me 2 days later, after the whole thing was over. He said that he had been nodding off after the screaming and noises had finally stopped, and that he had almost been asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and lay down on the floor and go to sleep. He assumed it was just one of us, and he started to nod off. He said that that's when he kind of realized that something was wrong, and while he was pretending to be sleeping, he counted us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 9 people in the cabin. He basically didn't want to try and shoot at the fucking thing in the cabin and have it kill us all right then and there. Or to have Reese wake up and start shooting and then we kill ourselves. So basically, he just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. He said that sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird jittery thing, or heave like it was laughing, but then it would lay back down. The story closes pretty weakly because, from my perspective, nothing happened. We woke up and I noticed that Tan was a little jittery and that he was avoiding looking at all of us. But we ate some breakfast, packed up, and started walking to his house. He stayed last in the cabin and said that he'd lock up and bring me my uncle's keys. He told me to just start walking and that he'd catch up, which I really didn't want to fucking do. We got a little bit up the path when he started running up. Basically, we just jogged back to his house, and his cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up, and he looked in there. We were too stupid to lock a screenless window. It was wide fucking open when he went in there. I'm guessing that it had been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or to slip up and then getting in among us. It walked with us all the way up the goddamn trail back to his house, and then he said that it lagged to the back of the group, and that it looked him dead in the eyes before walking